All right, so this is the story of how I got my first viral TikTok video. And this TikTok took my account from 0 followers all the way up to 30, 40,000 followers. The video ended up getting close to 10 million views. This story takes place right as I'm about to graduate high school. And I was hanging out with him and I'm like, yo, what are you doing tomorrow? And he said, well, I've got my high school graduation. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, I'm not doing anything. It started out as a joke. I'm like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if I came to your high school's graduation, almost like a senior prank? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, oh, and you know, we almost could because my girlfriend graduated last year and she still has her robe. So if you just put that on and showed up, like no one would question it. Spontaneously, we decided, you know what, I'm gonna sneak into his high school's graduation as a senior prank. The day started out with a senior breakfast. And so I walked straight in, I went and I sat down at the table with him and his friends and kind of let them in on the prank. And so every time anyone asked me, I was just like, oh yeah, I just did online. That's why you don't recognize me. And so the whole way, you know, I'm taking videos. I hadn't even planned it for TikTok. You gotta remember, this was just a fun day for me. I'm wearing a different school's robe and I'm walking through their line, high-fiving all the kids as I'm graduating. And you know, I'm hugging teachers, acting like I knew them, like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen you in so long. And obviously they're not gonna be like, who are you? They're just like, oh, congratulations. My favorite part of the day was everyone's always taking these group pictures on their graduation day. And so I was just joining into every picture I could. And you know, some people were like, who is this guy? But at the same time, they didn't want to be rude and like kick out a fellow classmate. I managed to get in quite a few pictures. So after the day's festivities, it was time for the ceremony. So they brought all the kids into this big gymnasium and told them, go find the seat with your name on it. And so all these kids are walking, they're finding, you know, their names and they're sitting down. I need to find an empty seat. I can't go sit down and then have someone walk up to me and be like, what are you doing in my seat? And so I kind of stalled, I waited. I found a seat with a name on it that was empty. I walked over and I sat down and, you know, I looked at the name and the name was Anthony Vettel. And so I'm like, okay, I'm Anthony Vettel now. You know, immediately some of the people around me were like, what's your name? I'm like, oh, I'm Anthony. And they're like, you are? So once everyone found out where they were supposed to go, that was like the practice run through. So they took us out and got us into a line, and I just stuck to, you know, my name's Anthony Vettel. So that, you know, the teacher would be like, okay, and, you know, Sarah, yes, Anthony. And I'd be like, yeah, I'm Anthony. And sure enough, it worked out. So there we were lined up, and everyone got their turn to walk up on stage by themselves, shake all the faculty's hands, wave to everyone from the stage, and then return back to their seat. So when I walked up on stage, it was funny seeing everyone's different reactions. They're the people that knew the kid I was impersonating, and they were just like, wait a minute, that's not him. Almost upset. There were the group of people that didn't know either of us and were just confused, like, what's going on? Why is this getting such a big reaction? And then there were the group of people that figured out that I was, you know, it was all a prank and that I didn't go to the school, and they were just dying laughing, and all the teachers are confused. They're like, what's going on? What's all this havoc? And yeah, I walked off the stage, I went and I returned to my seat, and you could just tell like the whole crowd was just like restless, and people are turning and looking at me, and people are pointing, and people are talking, and everyone was just kind of like, had a general like confused, like, what's going on here? You know, one of the teachers walked up to me and they're like, what's your name? Are you supposed to be here? And I was like, yeah, and I just recited the kid's name. She's like, oh yeah, you're on my list. So then she walked back, and then all the teachers were like, no, no, no. And it was just funny, all the teachers were gathered in a group, and they're all just pointing at me. And they were looking at me, and they were like discussing to themselves, and they're like nodding, and all the kids are just laughing. And then finally they came over, and they're like, you gotta come with us. So they walked me back, and they were like, all right, yeah, you gotta come into the principal's office. And at this point, I'm like, no, I think I'm just gonna leave. And they're like, no, 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 you gotta come to the principal's office. And I'm like, no, I think I'm just gonna leave. So I just took off and I ran out the door, and yeah, lo and behold, I put the video together, put it on TikTok, and you know, here we are.